But Baalbek, if there was one example, one ancient site on Earth that is evidence of a lost, ancient, advanced civilization, Baalbek, which is located in Lebanon.
A drone flew past Baalbek on what should have been a routine survey, until its camera captured something strange and undocumented. Below the megalithic structure that has baffled engineers for centuries, the sensors detected impossible geometry. The footage transmitted for exactly 4 minutes before armed personnel arrived. They had stumbled upon what no one was supposed to see. The data was seized. The pilot was silenced. What did the engineers discover? What about Baalbek? Did the government want to seal? The forbidden flyover. A Swedish geospatial engineer was contracted as a drone's operator for routine topographic mappings. His mission was straightforward: capture high-resolution imagery of the Baalbek temple complex for archaeological documentation. What he didn't anticipate was how profoundly a simple course correction would alter our understanding of human history. When the drone lifted into the quiet morning air, he made a decision that would alter everything. Instead of turning west toward the permitted mapping zone, he steered the craft toward the forbidden center, directly above the ancient platform known as the Trilithon.
So the Trilithon stones, 3 stones, 900 tons apiece, or 800 metric tons, and they were moved a half a mile from the quarry.
Below the drone, the stones appeared almost unreal. Each block was the size of a rail car, weighing hundreds of tons, fitted with precision that mocked the centuries. As the machine hovered above them, its sensors began to hum. Karim's monitor displayed the live thermal feed, red, yellow, and violet bands rippling across the surface of the megaliths. Then something new appeared, faint geometric shapes glowing in the thermal overlay. They were not marks on the surface, but heat signatures emerging from beneath the stone, several meters deep. He adjusted the resolution and switched to LiDAR imaging. The new data revealed 3 symmetrical voids under the Trilithon stones, arranged in a pattern too deliberate to be natural. According to every archaeological survey on record, the platform sat upon solid bedrock. Yet, the drone's readings contradicted that entirely. The data showed internal cavities, corridors, and near-perfect right angles descending into the earth. Karim steadied the drone for another pass. Without warning, the feed distorted. The image fractured into static, and the machine began to vibrate uncontrollably. Its internal sensors flagged a magnetic field anomaly. For a few seconds, the drone's compass spun wildly before stabilizing. The disturbance stopped the moment it pulled away from the center of the platform. He logged the event, unsure what to make of it. The interference had been too strong to blame on natural magnetism or equipment error. The readings suggested that something beneath the stones emitted a localized field powerful enough to disrupt flight stabilization. As he reviewed the captured data, a new anomaly surfaced. The telemetry logs recorded a persistent low-frequency resonance, roughly 18 Hz, emanating from the core of the platform. It was inaudible to the human ear, but capable of influencing vibration-sensitive machinery. The resonance continued even after the drone had retreated, indicating that it wasn't mechanical feedback. It was environmental. When the flight resumed, the drone's thermal sensors detected a faint rectangular grid hidden within the rock. The pattern matched the solstitial alignment of the ancient temple complex, running northeast to southwest. The alignment was too precise to be accidental. The shapes, the temperature differentials, the frequency patterns, all pointed to a structure hidden beneath the visible ruins. Karim ended the mission early and retrieved the machine. Later that day, government officials appeared at the survey site, requesting all flight logs and storage devices. They cited a breach of restricted airspace and confiscated every data drive. The authorities acted with an urgency that betrayed more than bureaucratic caution. Within hours, all records of the flight had been sealed, yet one copy of the data remained. Before handing over his equipment, Karim had transferred the raw imaging files to a private drive. That night, he examined the data in his apartment overlooking the Bekaa Valley. The LiDAR scans revealed unexpected geometry beneath the trilithon, 4 cavities connected by narrow channels, perfectly symmetrical and aligned with the magnetic north. When he enhanced the infrared footage, the cavities emitted faint luminosity, as though reflecting energy rather than absorbing it. He ran the resonance data through frequency analysis software. The results displayed a repeating wave pattern forming a hexagonal grid, consistent with artificial vibration sources. In acoustic terms, it behaved like a resonant cavity, a chamber designed to amplify sound or energy. The realization unsettled him. If the stones above were acting as a harmonic shell, then Baalbek's foundation might not be purely structural, it might be functional. The data implied design, an intentional combination of geometry, material, and vibration. Whatever lay beneath the platform was not an accident of erosion or construction. It was a mechanism engineered for a purpose lost to time. Days later, the entire project was shut down without explanation. Access to the site was restricted, and Karim's security clearance was revoked. The official report concluded that his equipment malfunctioned due to local magnetic anomalies. The anomalies were never defined. Still, the evidence remained on his drive. The waveforms, the temperature gradients, the LiDAR geometry, and the unexplainable resonance beneath the stones. The more he studied the data, the more consistent it appeared. The hidden structures beneath Baalbek were not random voids or geological faults. They were precise, deliberate, and harmonically tuned. The ruins had stood silent for millennia, but beneath the dust and stone, something remained alive, a pulse embedded deep in the bedrock, continuing its rhythm long after the civilization that placed it there had vanished. Whatever lay under Baalbek was still functioning. Not a ruin, not a relic, but a machine, waiting for the moment it would be rediscovered, ancient technology or lost civilization. The confiscated data didn't disappear, it multiplied. Before the military seizure, the Swedish engineers' automated cloud backup had transmitted 47% of the drone's sensor readings to servers in 3 countries. Within 72 hours, encrypted copies circulated through a network of academic researchers, structural engineers, and archaeologists who specialized in anomalous ancient construction. What they discovered in those fragmented files challenged every established timeline of technological development in the ancient world. Dr. Yara Haddad, a Lebanese-American geophysicist with dual appointments at M1T and the American University of Beirut, led the initial analysis. Her team focused on the geometric voids detected beneath the Baalbek platform, applying comparative algorithms used in mineral exploration and underground mapping. The results were immediately troubling. The subsurface chambers exhibited laser-straight edges with angular precision, measuring within 0.02 degrees of perfect perpendicularity. Tolerances that modern construction achieves only with computer-guided cutting equipment. The Romans, for all their engineering brilliance, worked with bronze tools and visual estimation. Their constructions, while impressive, showed the organic irregularities inherent to human craftsmanship. These underground geometries showed none. The chamber's dimensional ratios revealed another layer of sophistication. The primary void measured approximately 18 meters in length, 12 meters in width, and 8 meters in height, proportions forming a precise 3 to 2 to 1.33 relationship that appeared repeatedly in sacred architecture across ancient cultures. Egyptian pyramid chambers, Mayan temple vaults, and even the inner sanctum of Solomon's temple shared these mathematical relationships. Haddad's analysis suggested the ratios weren't aesthetic choices but functional requirements, possibly related to acoustic resonance or electromagnetic field geometry. The chambers weren't carved randomly into bedrock. They were calculated, designed to interact with natural forces in ways modern science was only beginning to understand. Thermal analysis provided even more disturbing implications. The cold spots detected by the drone's infrared sensors weren't simply empty spaces conducting heat differently than solid stone. The temperature stability was too perfect, too consistent across seasonal variations documented in historical weather data. Haddad's team compared the Baalbek readings with thermal profiles from hundreds of underground sites worldwide, natural caves, ancient cisterns, burial chambers, subway tunnels. Nothing matched. The subsurface temperature at Baalbek remained fixed at approximately 13.7 degrees Celsius, regardless of surface conditions. Both possibilities implied intentional engineering far beyond the capabilities attributed to ancient builders. The electromagnetic anomalies attracted attention from an unexpected quarter. Dr. Stefan Richter, a German physicist specializing in terrestrial magnetism, noticed that the pulsing magnetic fluctuations recorded by the drone correlated with measurements taken at other megalithic sites. During previous unrelated surveys, Stonehenge exhibited similar electromagnetic variations, measured during a 2019 study investigating how the monument's stones interacted with Earth's magnetic field. Giza's Great Pyramid had shown comparable patterns in research conducted by French engineers using cosmic ray muon detection. Even Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the world's oldest known temple complex, displayed subsurface magnetic signatures that matched the frequency and intensity detected at Baalbek. Richter's analysis went further, mapping the global distribution of megalithic sites exhibiting these electromagnetic properties. When plotted on a spherical projection accounting for continental drift over millennia, the sites formed a network of geometric relationships, not random scatter, but deliberate positioning. The angular distances between locations corresponded to specific fractions of Earth's circumference: 1/7, 1/9, 1/12. The precision required to establish such global positioning without satellite technology or even accurate maps seemed impossible. Yet, the mathematical relationships persisted through every verification method applied. Either ancient builders possessed geodetic knowledge rivaling modern surveying capabilities, or the site's locations were determined by detecting the same electromagnetic phenomena that contemporary instruments were only now sophisticated enough to measure. The magnetic field analysis revealed one more critical detail. The subsurface anomalies at Baalbek aligned perfectly with the region's geological fault lines and underground aquifer systems. Water flowing through fractured limestone generates measurable electrical currents through a process called electrokinetic conversion, the same principle that creates lightning in thunderclouds. The chambers beneath Baalbek appeared positioned at the precise intersection where multiple aquifers converged, where geological stress created maximum electromagnetic potential. Whether by coincidence or calculation, the ancient builders had placed their structures at locations where Earth itself generated natural energy.
Lebanon's breathtaking Baalbek ruins, once a must-see attraction for thousands of visitors around the world, now almost entirely empty of tourists.
6 months after the drone incident, a team of Italian engineers working on unrelated restoration projects at the site reported a new discovery that would make denial impossible. They had found something inside the stones themselves, something that suggested Baalbek's builders understood material science in ways that contradicted everything historians believed about ancient technology. And stranger still, this discovery pointed toward the existence of a sealed chamber that shouldn't exist. According to any architectural records, a space that appeared designed not for worship or burial, but for something else entirely. The new hidden chamber. The breakthrough came not from official archaeological channels, but from a clandestine network of engineers who refused to accept institutional silence. Dr. Marcus Weber, a Swiss structural analyst specializing in ancient construction techniques, had maintained contact with the Swedish drone operator through encrypted communications. When the pilot mentioned that he'd configured his equipment to create redundant backup streams, a standard precaution for expensive survey operations, Weber understood immediately that complete copies of the sensor data existed beyond governmental reach. Within weeks, he'd assembled a small consortium of researchers across 4 countries, each contributing specialized expertise to analyze what authorities had tried to suppress. The team's first task was reconstructing the 3-dimensional subsurface map from the fragmented LiDAR and thermal data. Using photogrammetry software designed for archaeological site documentation, they built a digital model of Baalbek's underground structures with unprecedented detail. The primary chambers revealed in earlier analysis were impressive, but they were merely the outer layer of something far more complex. As the researchers refined their processing algorithms, filtering out geological noise and correcting for data compression artifacts, a new feature emerged from the sensor readings, a distinct rectangular void located 18 meters beneath the central trilithon platform, perfectly centered along the site's east-west axis. The chamber's positioning was itself extraordinary. Ancient builders had somehow excavated or identified a cavity deep within the bedrock, then constructed the massive surface temple in precise alignment above it. The geometric relationship wasn't approximate. The chamber's longitudinal axis matched the trilithon's orientation to within 0.08 degrees, a tolerance that suggested either incredibly sophisticated surveying techniques or direct vertical access during construction. Modern engineers typically achieve such vertical alignment using laser, theodolites, and GPS reference points. The Baalbek builders had managed equivalent precision with Bronze Age or Roman-era technology, assuming conventional historical timelines were accurate. But the chamber's alignment with the solstitial axis provided the most compelling evidence of intentional design. Weber's team overlaid astronomical data showing the sun's position during summer and winter solstices over the past 3 millennia. The chamber's central axis pointed directly toward the sunrise position on the summer solstice, as observed from Baalbek's latitude, accounting for the Earth's axial precession over time. This wasn't accidental orientation, it was astronomical engineering, embedding celestial mechanics into underground architecture in ways that served purposes beyond simple calendrical marking. The thermal imaging analysis revealed properties that defied conventional explanation. While the chamber appeared as a cold spot on standard infrared scans, detailed spectral analysis showed it wasn't simply empty space conducting heat differently than surrounding bedrock. Their microscopic examination revealed something unexpected. The limestone blocks contained unusually high concentrations of quartz microcrystals, far exceeding the trace amounts typically found in Lebanese limestone formations. The distribution wasn't random. Higher concentrations appeared in specific stones, particularly those forming the lower courses closest to the underground chamber. Further geochemical testing confirmed the quartz wasn't a natural component of the local geology. Isotopic analysis suggested the crystalline material had been introduced through hydrothermal processes, or possibly through artificial means, high-temperature treatments that altered the stone's internal structure. The implications were staggering. Either the builders had selected stones with specific mineral properties from distant quarries, or they had developed techniques for modifying stone composition at the molecular level. Both possibilities required scientific knowledge that shouldn't have existed in antiquity. The subsonic frequency emanating from the chamber took on new significance in light of the quartz discovery. When quartz crystals are subjected to vibrations at their resonant frequency, they generate measurable electrical charges. the same principle used in modern electronic oscillators and timing circuits. The chamber beneath Baalbek appeared designed as a resonant cavity, its dimensions precisely calculated to amplify naturally occurring geological vibrations and focus them through quartz-enriched stones above. The entire structure functioned as a massive piezoelectric system, converting Earth's ambient seismic energy into electromagnetic fields. Weber's team used remote sensing techniques to analyze the chamber's internal structure without physical access. Electrical resistivity tomography, which measures how easily electrical current flows through different materials, revealed that the chamber's walls weren't rough-hewn stone, like the visible ruins above. The subsurface surfaces showed resistance values consistent with polished or vitrified material. Stone that had been either mechanically smoothed to mirror-like finish or exposed to extreme heat that melted its surface into glass. Achieving such surface treatment in an underground cavity, 18 meters below ground level, represented an engineering challenge that modern construction methods would struggle to replicate. The most disturbing discovery came from synthetic aperture radar analysis, a technique that uses electromagnetic pulses to detect density variations in solid materials. The chamber wasn't filled with collapsed rubble or sediment as initially assumed. It was hollow, containing something with a distinct electromagnetic signature, an object or structure inside the cavity that reflected radar waves differently than stone or empty air. The reflection pattern suggested a crystalline or metallic composition, something dense and geometrically regular positioned at the chamber's center. Two engineers on Weber's team, both employed by European firms with government contracts, made the decision to present their findings at a small conference on archaeoacoustics in Berlin. They believed academic disclosure would protect them through public visibility. They were catastrophically wrong. Within 48 hours of their presentation, both men became unreachable. Their colleagues reported they'd left cryptic messages about meeting with interested parties who could facilitate proper excavation. Their encrypted research notes, later recovered from secure servers, described something that transformed the entire investigation from archaeological curiosity into potential existential crisis. Evidence that the chamber's resonance could be activated, that the subsonic frequency wasn't passive detection, but an active system waiting for the correct harmonic trigger. The engineers who spoke out. The Berlin Conference on Archaeoacoustics seemed an unlikely venue for revelations that would trigger international intelligence operations, held in a modest university auditorium with fewer than 80 attendees. The symposium typically featured academic presentations on sound propagation in ancient theaters and the acoustic properties of Paleolithic cave art. When Dr. Henrik Voss and Dr. Antoine Moreau took the stage on the conference's second afternoon, their presentation was listed simply as subsonic resonance patterns in megalithic architecture. Nothing in the abstract suggested controversy. Nothing warned that these two engineers were about to expose information that powerful institutions had spent considerable resources concealing. Voss, a Danish acoustic engineer who had contributed to concert hall designs across Europe, began with seemingly innocuous technical data. He displayed spectrograms showing subsonic frequencies detected at various ancient sites: Stonehenge, Newgrange, the Hypogeum of Malta. His audience, familiar with research suggesting prehistoric builders, understood acoustic resonance, nodded along as he explained how stone chambers could amplify specific frequencies.
Baalbek has the largest stones that were ever quarried in human history, the largest stones that were lifted, stacked, and transported in human history, and the largest stone columns in all of classical history.
Then he introduced the Baalbek data, and the atmosphere in the auditorium shifted perceptibly. The frequency signatures from the Lebanese site weren't random ambient vibrations. They formed a coherent pattern, a waveform that repeated with mathematical precision every 4.3 seconds, the same interval that had disrupted the drone's telemetry months earlier. Moreau, a French structural analyst with expertise in seismic retrofitting, took over the presentation with comparative analysis that made the implications impossible to ignore. He overlaid the Baalbek frequency pattern with readings from particle accelerator facilities and industrial acoustic amplification systems. The match was too close for coincidence. The underground chamber's dimensions, its geometric proportions, and the subsonic pulse it generated resembled nothing from ancient history. They resembled a resonant cavity, a precisely engineered space designed to amplify and focus vibrational energy. Modern physics used such cavities in technologies ranging from radio transmitters to magnetic resonance imaging. The Baalbek chamber appeared to function on the same principles, but on a scale and with a sophistication that raised impossible questions about its origin. The final portion of their presentation crossed from controversial into dangerous territory. Voss displayed thermal imaging data showing that the subsonic pulse wasn't constant. It varied in intensity based on lunar phases and seismic activity in the East African Rift, over 1,000 kilometers away. The chamber was responding to geological forces across vast distances, as if tuned to detect or perhaps interact with tectonic movements throughout the region. Then Moreau revealed their most alarming finding. Mathematical models suggested the resonance could be dramatically amplified by introducing specific harmonic frequencies at the surface level. In essence, the chamber could be activated, its subsonic pulse intensified from barely detectable background hum to potentially destructive vibrational force. Both engineers became unreachable on the morning after their presentation. Voss's colleagues at his Copenhagen firm reported he'd left a voicemail mentioning an unexpected meeting with representatives from an archaeological foundation interested in funding further research. Moreau sent a brief text to his wife, stating he was extending his Berlin stay to meet with potential collaborators. Neither message provided specific details. Neither man responded to subsequent calls, emails, or messages. Their hotel rooms were found checked out, belongings removed, no forwarding information provided. The conference organizers, concerned about the sudden departure of two speakers, contacted local authorities. Police investigation revealed nothing criminal. Both men had left voluntarily, had used their credit cards for taxi services to Berlin-Brandenburg Airport, but there were no records of either boarding flights. Security footage showed them entering the terminal building, but never appearing at any gate or check-in counter. They had simply vanished within the complex infrastructure of international transit, absorbed into a system that moves millions of anonymous travelers daily. 4 months later, encrypted files appeared on secure servers accessible to the original research consortium. The files contained Voss and Moreau's complete notes, including analysis they hadn't presented in Berlin. The data described experiments they'd conducted using acoustic modeling software to simulate what might occur if the Baalbek chamber's resonance was deliberately triggered. The models predicted a harmonic cascade, the subsonic pulse amplifying through the quartz-enriched stones above, creating standing waves that could produce localized seismic effects. More troubling were references to threshold frequencies and activation protocols, suggesting the engineers believed the chamber was designed to be used, that ancient builders had created an instrument requiring specific knowledge to operate. The final entries in their notes described contact with parties who claimed to possess historical texts referencing Baalbek's true purpose. These texts, allegedly preserved in private collections, inaccessible to mainstream academia, described the site using terms that translated roughly as the anchor or the stabilizer. Voss and Moreau had scheduled meetings to examine these documents. Their notes ended with a single cryptic line: "If the texts are authentic, Baalbek wasn't built to harness energy, it was built to contain it." Meanwhile, satellite imagery analyzed by amateur researchers revealed something that official channels weren't discussing. Recent excavation activity had begun near the ancient city of Heliopolis, just meters from Baalbek's restricted perimeter. Heavy equipment, temporary structures, and ground disturbance patterns consistent with archaeological exploration appeared in images dated to the weeks following the engineer's disappearance. Someone was searching for the chamber, and they weren't waiting for academic approval or proper methodology. The race to reach what lay beneath Baalbek had moved from theoretical research into active operation, and whatever they hoped to find was important enough to justify making two men disappear. Baalbek's true purpose. The ancient texts that Voss and Moreau had sought before their disappearance weren't mythical. They existed in fragments scattered across private collections, monastery archives, and museum storage rooms where few scholars ventured. Dr. Leila Kassab, a philologist specializing in Phoenician and Aramaic inscriptions, had spent decades cataloging references to Baalbek in pre-Roman literature. What she discovered challenged the conventional narrative that the site was merely a Roman temple complex built atop earlier Phoenician ruins. The oldest texts described Baalbek not as a place of worship, but as something far more functional and mysterious. A fragmentary Phoenician inscription housed in the Beirut National Museum, largely ignored by mainstream archaeology, referred to Baalbek as Baalbek, not Valley of Baal as commonly translated, but possibly Baal's spine or Baal's foundation. The text, dated to approximately 1200 BCE, described the site as the place of ascent, where Earth's breath rises to meet heaven's voice. This wasn't poetic metaphor in ancient technical writing, it was description. The Earth's breath likely referenced the subsonic vibrations now confirmed by modern sensors, while heaven's voice might indicate electromagnetic phenomena or perhaps astronomical alignments that synchronized with the geological forces below. Roman writers who documented Baalbek centuries later showed unusual reverence for the existing structures, repeatedly noting that the massive foundation stones predated their own construction efforts. Pliny the Elder mentioned that local inhabitants believed the platform was built by beings who knew the voice of stone. Medieval Arab historians preserved even older traditions, describing Baalbek as one of several ancient sites where the world's pillars were established, locations where mysterious ancients had placed mechanisms to stabilize the earth after a great catastrophe. These weren't isolated mythological claims, but consistent descriptions appearing across cultures separated by thousands of years. Modern reinterpretation of these texts through the lens of contemporary geophysics revealed startling correlations. The world's pillars concept appeared repeatedly in ancient literature associated with megalithic sites, always describing them not as monuments, but as functional installations. When Kassab's translations were compared with electromagnetic surveys of major megalithic locations, a pattern emerged that transcended cultural boundaries and historical periods. Sites identified in ancient texts as pillars or anchors consistently showed the same subsonic frequencies, the same electromagnetic anomalies, the same precise astronomical alignments as Baalbek. The network extended across continents in ways that conventional diffusion theories couldn't adequately explain. Giza's Great Pyramid, positioned at the exact center of Earth's landmass when accounting for continental drift, exhibited subsonic resonance at 16.8 Hz, close enough to Baalbek's 18.3 Hz to suggest intentional harmonic relationship rather than coincidence. Stonehenge's massive sarsen stones, erected with extraordinary precision around 2500 BCE, resonated at 19.2 Hz. Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known megalithic complex at over 11,000 years old, showed readings of 17.4 Hz. The frequencies weren't identical, but they clustered within a narrow range that acoustic engineers recognized as harmonically related, like musical notes forming a chord rather than random noise. Dr. Rahman Al-Mazri, a Lebanese seismologist who had joined the Informal Research Consortium, proposed a theory that synthesized the ancient descriptions with modern measurements. The megalithic sites weren't isolated monuments, but nodes in a global network designed to interact with Earth's natural resonance, the Schumann frequency, a planetary electromagnetic pulse that oscillates at approximately 7.83 Hz. The ancient builders, Al-Mazri suggested, had positioned massive stone structures at geologically active locations where natural vibrations could be amplified and focused. The purpose might have been seismic stabilization, using resonant chambers to dissipate tectonic stress before it accumulated into destructive earthquakes. The theory gained unexpected support from historical seismology. Researchers analyzing ancient records of earthquake activity found curious gaps, periods when major seismic events appeared less frequent in regions surrounding megalithic sites. Statistical analysis showed the pattern was unlikely to be coincidental. From approximately 3000 BCE to 1200 BCE, the Eastern Mediterranean experienced significantly fewer destructive earthquakes than either earlier or later periods. This era of relative seismic stability corresponded precisely to the time when megalithic construction flourished across the region. If Baalbek was indeed a seismic management system, the underground chamber took on new significance. Its resonant cavity, positioned at the convergence of multiple aquifers and fault lines, would function as an amplifier and distributor of vibrational energy. The quartz-enriched stones above would convert mechanical vibrations into electromagnetic pulses through piezoelectric effects, creating fields that could theoretically influence tectonic stress patterns across vast distances. Modern physics understood these principles, but lacked the engineering capability to implement them on geological scales. Yet the evidence suggested ancient builders had achieved precisely that.
This structure to build the structure upon are one of the heaviest rocks in the whole world. So it's crazy how they lift them up to here. This is some sort of mystery still.
Constructing a planetary network of vibrational regulators that maintained seismic stability for millennia. The implications were sobering. If Baalbek and similar sites were components of an ancient geophysical management system, their current dormant state raised urgent questions. Had the system simply degraded over time, or had it been deliberately deactivated? More critically, could it be reactivated? And what would happen if modern interference, like the covert excavation now underway, damaged components that still functioned on levels current science couldn't detect? The engineers who had vanished after presenting their findings had warned that the chamber could be triggered by specific harmonic frequencies. If they were correct, someone attempting to access or activate the chamber without understanding its true function could trigger consequences that ranged from localized seismic events to something far worse. And then a classified excavation report, leaked through channels that couldn't be traced, confirmed everyone's worst fears. They had reached the chamber, breached its sealed entrance, and found something inside that defied every assumption about what ancient civilizations could achieve. Something that was still functioning after thousands of years in darkness. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.